Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. I'm walking to a farm to grow wheat. And I've got no rhythm. I'm snuggled up on the couch, got my blanket on. It's pouring rain. You might hear the thunder rumbling because it's quite cold and miserable. And the apartments in Israel are not built for the winter. They're built to keep heat out in the summer. So when there is no heat at all, it gets chilly. So we've got radiators on and I'm snuggly. So I'm going to do my Friday reads from the couch, hope you don't mind. Just a quick one, I think. Didn't have like a big reading week, but I wanted to fill you in on the book that I'd started last week, which was No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood, which I know has been a favourite of some, and other people have found it perplexing. And I mentioned it last week, and I was about 30 pages in. I mentioned I was finding it a little annoying. And I've finished it now, and I wanted to give a more holistic review of it. So the first half of it is very much written in easy scroll web snippets, just bits of nowness, bits of millennial auto fiction. Isn't this? Aren't I clever? And aren't these great jokes about what the world is like for people who spend their lives, what people in business call digital natives, and it got it. I mean, it's perfectly witty and it's bright and it's really current, and it did get a little bit irritating. What it turns out that when you get to the second half of the book, which takes an absolute 90-degree turn from the first half, is what you find out is that all that stuff, all that airy, weightless bump in the first half is doing the opposite of what ballast does for a hot air balloon. It's raising it up, and it's making everything feel fluffy and silly and kind of, as I say, weightless, because what's coming is very serious, and what's coming is the part that no one talks about, and it's the sickness of a child, and it's serious, and I say this is autofiction. This is not. I don't think it's a novel. What the author Patricia Lockwood is telling a story of her sister's child who was born or is diagnosed before birth with all sorts of difficulties, and the baby is born and has limitations and struggles, and how the second half deals with how the family goes there, how the narrator of this biography, autofiction, whatever it is, the narrator of this book is the aunt of this child, and expresses enormous love and sadness of what's happening, and also the love and support that she's giving her sister and her brother-in-law, and the way this impacts the whole family. And that, I think, is the thing that no one's talking about. That's that sense of grief and sadness and anger and pain dealing with a child's sickness. So say that's that first half it's the opposite of ballast, right? Instead of weighing you down so you don't float away, the first half is trying to make you float away, because what's coming is serious, and it's not. I don't think it's mawkish. I don't think it's overly sentimental. I think it's well written. I just don't think it's wholly successful, because I think it and this sounds like a harsh criticism. I have nothing but empathy for the feelings and the what's going on, and the description of parenting. On this instance, she's an aunt, so and that sense of remove from the illness of the child is actually even more. Like, she can't be the mother. She's helping her sister, but she's not the mother. But she has this overwhelming sense of wanting to do something, and those feelings and the love that she has for this poor sick child in the few months that she's on the planet is real and palpable. And I have empathy for that. But I think as a book, it doesn't work because it fails to universalize those feelings. It's very personal, which is fine. I think as a novel needs to take something like that and make it accessible to the reader. To me, I think that's the purpose of a novel, and there are plenty of books that I've read that have been successful that also don't do that. And I think and The Lovely Bones was a book which I think failed to universalize the pain of the author. And I've read a couple of others. Another book called Imagine Me Gone, I think, by Adam Hazlitt, if I remember that correctly. I've read a few books which the author is clearly using them as a cathartic experience to express some pain or some experience, but in doing so, what might work for the author, that's the thunder rumbling, I don't think is a wholly successful experience for the reader. So it's not a bad book. It's a very well written, and I'd be interested in reading more by Patricia Lockwood, but I don't think it's a novel. And interesting that the previous book was a memoir, so I haven't read Priest Daddy. I heard great things about that, and I understand what a memoir is and how that works, and maybe that'd be interesting to read. But I'm not yet convinced that Patricia Lockwood is a novelist. So this is No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood, and I think the reason no one's talking about it is because it's so personal. I don't think maybe that you're supposed to, or that pain and grief and sadness are things that should be dealt with within your nuclear network, not your social one. After that, I picked up a graphic novel, totally unnecessary one. This is Armor Wars, starring the invincible Iron Man. This is Iron Man from the 80s, I want to say. I mean, I think I remember these original issues. That's the cover of whatever issue that Iron Man 225. I think I remember seeing these, or at least if they didn't come out when I was collecting comics, they were around in the back issue bins. This was in the comics. It's called Stark Wars because he's Tony Stark, which is probably a better title than Armor Wars. And this is Iron Man has got this horrible, for most of it, he's got these horrible silver and red rather than the classic gold and red that we know him. He's always, every now and then, they're reinventing the Iron Man suits. But what is unforgivable, really, about this is, let me find you a really good picture of Tony Stark's. 1 second, I have 1 second. There's Tony Stark in profile there, and you can just see his blue-black mullet perm. Yeah, that's not a good look for Tony Stark, and all the way through. A lot of blue-black mullet when he's being Tony Stark. And this is a time when people don't know that Tony Stark is Iron Man. They know that Tony Stark is the owner and CEO of Stark Enterprises. And Iron Man is a representative of Stark Enterprises. He's a spokesperson of Stark Enterprises, and people don't know there's actually Tony Stark inside the suit. And the story here is Iron Man goes a bit rogue and has to, he's worried that his tech that he's used to build these suits has been stolen by a bunch of villains and maybe even some government contractors, and so he goes out to destroy every single other armored supervillain or even armored hero to make sure they're not using his tech. And so Iron Man goes off and without any he doesn't want the help of the Avengers, doesn't want anyone, gets into it and takes out all these people and destroys their suits of armor. That's why it's Armor Wars. He's all sorts of other armored heroes, including Stilt Man and the Crimson Dynamo is in Russia, so he almost starts a Third World War. Anyway, as a result, Tony Stark is forced, as CEO of Stark Enterprises, to disassociate himself from Iron Man and announces to the world that Iron Man has been fired from Stark Enterprises. And just to tell you how poorly this has aged, the PR lady who works for Tony Stark says, we've lined up some new spokespeople. How about Bill Cosby? So yeah, that's very 80s. Pick this up cheap. It wasn't great. The one I really want to get hold of is the Demon in the Bottle story, which is another 80s Iron Man. It covers 4 or 5 issues where Tony Stark is revealed to be an alcoholic, and that I think is probably a little more. It's so wordy and so much exposition and so much repetition at the beginning of each issue. They tell you everything that went on in the issue before. It's very of its time, so not necessarily recommended, but goes nicely on the shelf. I should say this was written by David Michelini, I think is how you pronounce his name. And then there's an issue the last issue that is collected in this one is also plotted by and drawn by Barry Windsor Smith, but it's a totally bonkers dream sequence. That's The Invincible Iron Man, Armor Wars, David Michelini. And then after that, I read my next Agatha Christie. This is number 2 if you're in the chronological publishing of Hercule Poirot. This is a second story featuring the Belgian detective who solves crime with his little grey cells. And it's terrific. Another just a watertight bit of plotting and great character work. There is another French detective who gets involved. So he travels from England to France to try and solve a murder, and there's a French detective come from Paris who is rather dismissive of Poirot's talents and very rude to Poirot, and is hunting for clues and scouring the area and picking up and discarding. And maybe I'm wrong. I think it's supposed to be a bit of a dig at Sherlock Holmes, who was very cold-blooded and everything based on the evidence. And even, as I say, 2 books into finding out who Hercule Poirot is, he's very emotionally intelligent, and he listens to people, and he forms opinions about people based on the way they react and they respond and what would be a natural way to react. And so, yeah, he does do deduction and solving crimes and using evidence, but he's a much warmer detective than Sherlock Holmes. So I'm enjoying it. I haven't finished all of Sherlock Holmes yet. I'm up to the Hand of the Baskervilles. I've just picked up a copy. Anyway, that's the second one. My next one of these, I've already got the third Hercule Poirot, which is actually a collection of short stories. That's quite nice. So 2 full-length novels, short stories, and then after that is Roger Ackroyd, which I don't spoil it. I don't know what happens, but I know it's supposed to be one of the best ones. And that's that. I was finished that, read that all in one go. And now I'm reading big chunky Empire of Pain by Patrick Rankin-Keefe, which is the history of the Sackler family. I'm 50 pages in so far, and it starts inside the cover is the Sackler family tree, because we start right back with the great grandparents, the actual founders of the Sackler dynasty, who were the grandfather, I think, or great uncle of the ones who were on trial, and it actually is a great companion piece to the play that we saw in New York, the Lehman Trilogy, which is also about 3 Jewish brothers making their way in America. They were a little earlier, that's sort of mid-19th century, and this is all, so far, has taken place in the first half of the 20th century. Patrick Rankin-Keefe is just a terrific writer, so I'm really looking forward. I will knock this off over Shabbat, I believe, even though it's a big chunky one. It's just super readable. Looking forward to getting that. So that's relatively quick Friday reads for you, because I'm snuggled up on the couch. I don't know what I'm going to do now. Maybe fall asleep here or watch some Netflix or upload this video. Probably that's what I need to do. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope you're staying warm and safe and snug wherever you are. Take care. Bye.